I am Patricia Ramsey, president of Medgar Evers College. Happened to be the first woman and first scientist to be in the role. On behalf of Medgar Evers College, I'm delighted to welcome Mayor Mamdani and the Office of Equity and Racial Justice to Central Brooklyn today. Medgar Evers College has a story that is deeply woven in the fabric of this community. Birthed out of the Black community of Central Brooklyn with social justice in its DNA, this college was called into existence by the very residents of this community. The college is named for Medgar Wiley Evers, who gave his life for the civil rights of others. Today's press conference will speak to issues that sit at the very heart of the community that we serve. We look forward to hearing the vision for a more just and equitable New York City. Mayor Mamdani, thank you for bringing this conversation to Central Brooklyn. There is not a more fitting place than Medgar Evers College. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, our mayor of New York City, Mayor Mamdani.
Once more for Dr. Ramsey. Truly, it is a pleasure to be here, and to be here also to celebrate what I've now just learned is the most enrolled major at Medgar Evers, biology, and the 900 students who are studying to be biologists. They are deeply needed because I am a mayor who has very little knowledge of biology. It is a pleasure to be here to announce the release of our preliminary racial equity plan and true cost of living report. And I want to say thank you first to our Chief Equity Officer and our Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Equity and Racial Justice, Afia Atamensa, for her steadfast leadership. In addition to thanking our Commissioner as well as the Medgar Evers President, Dr. Ramsey, I want to thank Council Member Sandy Nurse and Public Advocate Jumani Williams, who are here with us. And we have a number of our leaders from within city government. We have our city planning chair, Sadea Sherman. We have our commissioner, Alistair Martin. We have Dr. Sarah Saeed of the Civic Engagement Commission. We have our SBS commissioner, Kenny Minaya, our DOP commissioner, Sharoon Goodwin, our chief climate officer, Louise Young, and our commissioner, Yesenia Mata, as well. Now, as I look back, I also see our lawyer, Ramsey Qasim. And I want to give an acknowledgement as well to our chief of United Way of New York City, Grace Bonilla, who is here with us, truly. And I'll just end with some final acknowledgments also to the ED and chair of the Commission on Racial Equity, Linda Tajani, one of the commissioners, Kirsten John Foy, as well as members of the advisory board on the implementation of the Racial Justice Charter amendments, Fred Davey and Uday Tambar. And a special shout out to Dabash Nagash, a deputy commissioner of MOERJ, and the 9 equity planning commissioners, if we can give them a round of applause. So as we provide these acknowledgments, they are also an acknowledgement of the many who brought this day forward, the many who ensured that this would be something we would actually act upon. And that is not just work that has been done over the last few months, over the last few years, but frankly over the last few decades even. And I want to give a special remembrance for Bob Law, the radio legend. He was a tireless advocate for racial justice. And when we take a step forward on a day like this, we also do so looking to pay tribute to his memory. And we do so here at an institution named after an incredible man in the name of Medgar Evers, the legacy of someone who dedicated his life to fighting for the dignity of Black Americans across this country. Now, Medgar Evers spoke at Mount Heron Baptist Church in Vicksburg, Mississippi in 1957 about our obligations to one another. He said, as men living in as highly diversified and complex a society as ours, it is our duty and responsibility to our fellow men and our children to tackle the problems that lie ahead with faith and courage. And nearly 70 years later, that same directive guides us in our work here in New York City, where extraordinary wealth and devastating poverty live side by side. The people of our city understand that our fates are bound up in one another, and that we owe each other courage as we confront the problems facing our city. And that is why New Yorkers in 2022 voted to develop a racial equity plan and a true cost of living measure. And I want to say thank you as well to someone who is here with us in Jennifer Jones Austin, who was at the forefront of ensuring that that was the case. Now, though the prior administration delayed both of these reports by 580 days, our City Hall has made a promise in the early days of the admin to deliver these long-awaited reports within our first 100 days. And today, I am proud to say we are delivering on that promise. Today's announcement has two parts: the preliminary citywide racial equity plan and the inaugural New York City true cost of living measure. Together, these reports establish a framework for how our city will both measure affordability and plan for the future. The true cost of living measure confirms what New Yorkers have long known to be true. Too many people cannot afford the city that they love. New York City is home to skyscrapers, million-dollar listings, $9 lattes, and yet more than 3 in 5 New Yorkers, 62%, cannot keep up with the cost of living in this city. Despite the incredible wealth of our city, our poverty rate is double that of the national average, and it is getting worse year over year. And while today's true cost of living measure confirms that the affordability crisis touches every corner of our city, we know that these effects are not applied evenly. So often, it is black and brown New Yorkers who are hit the hardest. This preliminary racial equity plan is the first step in developing a whole-of-government approach to tackling that reality. It is a plan that lays out these first steps to solve decades of neglect and discrimination, and it places the work of 45 city agencies within a singular framework. Too often, the story of black and brown New Yorkers is one of being forced to stretch that same dollar that little bit further. Every year, as wages stagnate, as well as an exodus and exclusion continues to take place. When I say exodus, I refer to the fact that from 2000 to 2020, more than 200,000 black New Yorkers were pushed out of this city because they could not afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America, because rent was too high, childcare was too expensive, and groceries cost too much. Now, I ran for mayor on an affordability agenda because we know that we cannot solve this crisis without reckoning with the fact that the neighborhoods hit hardest by rent and the rising nature of it, by childcare costs and the suffocating manner of it, are the same ones that have been hit for years by institutional neglect and racism. In that way, New York City's affordability crisis and its history of racial inequity are bound together. That is why when we secured $1.2 billion in partnership with the governor to place our city on a path to universal childcare, we made sure to begin with the neighborhoods that have so often been overlooked, neighborhoods like Canarsie, Brownsville, Far Rockaway, and others. And we also know that the dream of home ownership has been denied to too many New Yorkers due to redlining, FHA loan discrimination, and deed theft. That is why we are not only fast-tracking the building of more than 1,000 affordable housing units, but breaking ground on new developments, Myrtle Avenue in Bed-Stuy, Jerome Avenue in the Bronx, and Farmers Boulevard in Queens. And every single day I've been in office, we have delivered nearly $100,000 back to working-class New Yorkers, small businesses, and so many others who've been ripped off by large corporations as they struggled to make their ends meet in this city. Now, as we finalize this plan, we will continue to tackle our city's affordability crisis without turning away from the decades and, frankly, centuries of disinvestment in black and brown New Yorkers. Now, we will need New Yorkers' help with this work. The plan we are announcing today is a preliminary one. And to complete it, we are opening a 30-day public comment period. Now, I know one thing we love about this city is we have no shortage of opinions. And we are asking New Yorkers to share them with us, because we know that in those opinions we will find the answer as to what government can be doing better to finally reckon with both the true cost of living in this city and the racial inequities we've seen pervade for far too long in this place that we call home. Now, as we chart this new path forward, we do so with the wish that it be guided by a very simple purpose, that in the wealthiest city in the world, no longer should so many be forced to make do with such little. We will create a New York City that belongs to all who build it, and we will do so together. Thank you, and now I will introduce our Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, Julie Su.
Thank you so much, Mayor. New York City, as you just heard, is one of the richest cities in the entire world. Yet for too many New Yorkers, that wealth feels like someone else's city. 62% of New Yorkers, more than 5 million people, cannot meet the true cost of living in this city. This crisis did not fall from the sky, and it does not hit evenly. That is why we are releasing the true cost of living measure and the preliminary citywide racial equity plan together. The people who built this city and who keep it running should be able to afford to live in it. And even that is systematically harder for some than for others. So 44% of white New Yorkers cannot afford the real cost of living in New York City. But that figure is 66% for Black New Yorkers, 63% for Asian and Pacific Islander New Yorkers, and 78% for Hispanic New Yorkers. Now, let me be clear. All of those percentages are bad, and they are not inevitable. They are the result of policy choices that were made and policy choices that we are choosing to unmake. No, this is about equity and it's about economic growth. When communities of color are denied investment and stability, it drives up costs and weakens the foundations everyone depends on, including white New Yorkers. This country once embraced public investment, the GI Bill, affordable public college, housing investments. But when Black Americans fought for access to those programs, backlash politics taught people to resent government programs instead of expanding them. And the result was a worse deal for everyone. Black families were hit first and hardest, but working families of every race were left with lower wages, more debt, higher tuition, less public investment, and a shrinking middle class. So we are releasing these reports together because they tell one story. Many of the same forces that drive racial inequity, exclusion, and economic security also helped produce a city that has become harder for New Yorkers of every background to afford. As Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, my job is to make sure that this story ends differently. And we are already hard at work. The mayor mentioned protecting tenants, making childcare more affordable, strengthening worker and consumer protections, starting an Office of Community Safety, cutting red tape for small businesses, working with organizations led by and for Black and brown New Yorkers to decide what happens in them, and pursuing economic development that serves all of us, and economic growth that is shared growth. Because racial equity cannot be just something we talk about in a plan. It has to show up in whether people have a just day's pay they can depend on, can afford to raise their kids, keep more of what they earn, feel a sense of belonging, and breathe easy at the end of each day. And when we do that, for the New Yorkers least able to afford it, we make this city what it has always promised to be. Thank you.
Now we'll have our Commissioner, Afia Atamensa.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you today as we mark an important milestone for our city. I want to thank so many of our fellow commissioners for being here today. This plan was born during a defining moment in our city's history, when New Yorkers were in the streets in the midst of a global pandemic, calling for justice, demanding accountability, and bearing witness to brutality unfolding on our streets and on our screens. In that moment, our city was asked to reckon with the deep systemic inequities that have long shaped life here and to do better. New Yorkers across all 5 boroughs answered that call. Their voices, their advocacy, and their persistence are what brought us to this moment. The release of the preliminary citywide racial equity plan is a reflection of that collective mandate. It is not just a document, it is a commitment to confront institutional and systemic racism within our city and to begin the work of dismantling it. This effort represents collaboration across New York City government. 45 agencies and more than 200 public servants came together with a shared purpose to build a more equitable, inclusive, and just city. That type of coordination only happens when there is a clear understanding that this work is both urgent and necessary. The Office of Equity and Racial Justice is helping to lead this effort, and as a commissioner, I want to be clear that this is just the first step, a step we took in spite of tensions around doing so. Our responsibility now is to move from planning to action and to do so with intention, transparency, and accountability. Because plans alone do not create change, action does. This plan lays out a roadmap to address inequities through both targeted programs and deeper structural reforms. It challenges us to examine how systems operate, how decisions are made, and how resources are distributed, and to change what is not working. But this work cannot happen in isolation. Community input must remain central to how we move forward. The voices of those most impacted by inequity must continue to guide us, shape our approach, and hold us accountable. So I also want to take a moment to recognize the individuals and partners who help guide this work. We are deeply grateful to the Racial Justice Charter Amendment Advisory Board for their leadership and insight, the racial equity planning team members across the city and the 9 racial equity planners who are here with us, planning managers, our accountability partners at CORE, and to Dr. Ramsey, Esmeralda Simmons, Dr. Brenda Green, Lori Daniels Favors of Medgar Evers College, a hallowed institution named in honor of one of America's most prolific civil rights leaders. We also recognize former MOERJ Commissioner and current DCP Chair Sadea Sherman, whose leadership helped bring this plan to New Yorkers through her work both with the Racial Justice Commission and all the iterations that is now the Mayor's Office of Equity and Racial Justice. And importantly, we thank the New Yorkers who continue to show up, speak out, and remain committed to change. This work belongs to you. As we move forward, I implore each of you, agency leaders, partners, and community members alike to stay engaged, to lead into the work and to hold yourselves accountable and hold each of us accountable. Because the success of this plan will not be measured by its release, but by its impact. Together, we have an opportunity to confront the inequities embedded in our system and to build something better, something more just, inclusive, and more reflective of the values we share. Thank you so much. And it is my pleasure to call up our public advocate, Jumaane Williams.
Thank you. Peace and blessing, love and light to you all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And last time we had a press conference, I was late because I had to drop off the baby, but I brought her with me this time. So she's listening to Gabby, not watching it, because I forgot I needed my phone. So hopefully she's all right over there. But thank you for having this here, and thank you, Madam President, for having this space for us. And I always want to make sure I let everyone know we cannot change the mission of Medgar Evers or change who it was for. So I want to make sure every time that bubbles up in the community, we want to make sure we push back on it. I'm also not just here as the highest ranking citywide black elected. I'm here as a New Yorker who has cared about these issues for a very long time, following and being inspired by people like Bob Lowe and Roger Green and Esmeralda Simmons and so many others who have been working on these issues long before I ever thought about becoming an elected official. And Afia, it's awesome to see you in this mission. I know that this is not a joke when you're in it, so that you're not going to stand up here and talk about things that are not real. And Jennifer Jones-Austin, thank you so much for pushing the true cost of living, because that has been an issue for a very long time. And let's be clear, when 62% of New Yorkers can't afford to live here, that's not a crisis on the margins. It's a citywide emergency. What this report confirms is what communities have been saying for generations. Inequality in New York City is not accidental, it's systemic, and it's racial. And I always want to say, you have to mention race in the solution because race was mentioned in creating the problem in the first place. The federal poverty line has been lying about how hard it is to live in the city. The true cost of living finally tells the truth. New Yorkers feel every single day. And we also know that plans don't change lives, actions do. And so this is a very, very welcome framework and a way to start to figure out how we get that action. We also have to hold agencies accountable to deliver results in addition to the reports. We want to make sure that our budgets are reflective of what's in this report. Millions of New Yorkers are doing everything right and still falling behind. If our policies don't work for them, then our policies are broken, or perhaps they're working how they were designed to work. When most of our children are growing up in families that can't make ends meet, that's not just an economic issue, it's also a moral one, and it demands urgency from all of us. I want to also thank the people that were mentioned, Linda Tagani and Kirsten Foy and the Commission Advisory Committee, also the people who voted for this in the first place, that they understood how important it was to talk about these issues. And I want to make sure that we're lifting all the communities that were mentioned who are burdened by a system that's created for the wealthy. But I do want to make sure we lift up particularly black communities. Sometimes they get left behind when we start talking about a lot of issues. It is important to understand that anti-blackness is rooted in so many of these things by design. Even when we mention other communities, if we're honest, anti-blackness exists in those. And so those other communities, whether it's women or immigrants, when you look at the numbers in the black communities, they are doing the worst. And anti-blackness is designed to make sure that we cannot mention black communities without people feeling uncomfortable, feeling for some reason that we are asking for something that is not deserved, or something that is not to repair what was created. And what we've seen, and I specifically want to talk about black New Yorkers who have been here for generations, who have seen other communities come and benefit from the hard work that they've put in on the backs of the struggles that they've made, and they're still struggling while they see other communities coming, and that leads to division unnecessarily. So it is important that we understand we have everything we need for everyone that is here, but people's anger are valid. And so it is right to put out a report like this. I'm really hoping that New Yorkers who are watching this, this is not a condemnation of any one New Yorker, black, white, brown, because none of us created this system. But all of us have to decide to change the system the way it is. And I want to be clear that I understand there are wealthy black New Yorkers and there are poor white New Yorkers. But we shouldn't let individual accomplishments take away the community impact. And so I see that happen all the time. There is a communal impact. And if we are going to address it, we have to be honest about it. Because when communities like black communities who have been dealing with issues for a very long time, when that community does better, everybody does better. Because the systems that are designed to keep them down keep a whole lot of people behind as well, and we see that happening. So instead of allowing leaders to feed our biases and to point to other people and say you're the reason why something not happening, a plan like this can lay out a framework that says everybody has a right to be here, everybody has a right to thrive, and we're going to knock down the systems that are different for everyone, but we're going to recognize those systems that are keeping them behind and put in policies that change decades and decades of purposeful harm that is done by race. Thank you so much. Peace and blessing. Love and light to you all.
Councilmember Sandy Nurse.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Thanks. Greetings, everyone. Good morning. Happy Monday. It was really quiet when we walked in here, but I think we're all jazzed up now. Thank you to the mayor and to Commissioner Atamensa for all of your work in the last couple of months, getting this out the door and getting this over the finish line. This plan and this report is long overdue. I am here in my capacity as the chair of the Civil and Human Rights Committee, and beyond that, I've had nothing to do with the work here that's being put forward today. But I am looking forward to advancing this work here through our committee and where this conversation is housed in the council. I'm really excited to move that forward. But I think it's very alarming to hear the statistic of 62% of 5 million people who are walking around this city living in a crisis every day. Mothers, single mothers, elders, our children who are living in the shelter system. It's a 5-alarm fire, and we all know it's existing. This report just puts it in black and white for all of us. The fact that a single adult needs $75,000 just to like cover costs, not even to have a little bit of savings. Not to mention that if your tire blows out, if you get sick at work, you got somebody else who's sick, you could just completely spiral into a crisis and not get out of it. So many New Yorkers are struggling, and not only is the cost of living in the city crushing New Yorkers, but there are these historical, structural, racist forces that are just stacked against them and have been stacked against them for centuries. And it is very clear that without dramatic action, we will continue to reproduce inequality and inequity in this city. So that is why this plan is so important, this whole of government approach where every single agency is responsible for goals, outcomes, and deadlines. Deadlines is so important to have real accountability here. Goals like every single New Yorker having a primary care physician by 2034, that is so small, and yet such a clear intervention that can change someone's entire life trajectory. So I really want to thank everybody who pushed for this charter revision to happen in the first place, and everyone who has been relentless over the last couple of years to making sure it actually gets published. I know 30 days, what did we say, 30 days? Is it commentary period? Okay, all right. All right, New Yorkers, you know, that means we got to get serious. 30 days goes by very, very fast. We want to make sure that we get this plan into shape, and that is something we can all stand beside. So I look forward to partnering with everybody in this room to make sure New Yorkers get their voice in here. And I look forward to working with you all in my chair capacity. Thank you.
Jennifer Jones-Austin.
Good morning. I was proud when I was asked to serve as the chair of the New York City Racial Justice Commission alongside Commissioner Yesenia Mata and Commissioner Fred Davey and 8 others back in 2021. But Mayor Mamdani, I'm even more proud today. I keep thinking to myself, who knew that all that we really needed in New York City was a mayor and an administration who truly care, are sincere when you say that you want all to live with dignity. So I just have to thank you, Mayor Mamdani. Appreciating that far too many New Yorkers, disproportionately persons of color, struggle financially but go unseen with poverty measures based in deprivation and with self-sufficiency measures that are based in subsistence. The Racial Justice Commission put a true cost of living measure centered in economic security on the ballot, and 81% of those who voted said yes. Mayor Mamdani, we then stayed the course. For more than 4 years, some of us 8 years, those of us who held the vision for a standard measure that ensures policies advancing affordability, security, and well-being are centered in costs and resources needed not just to survive, but to thrive. And then, in less than 100 days, you made the vision a reality. That's a big deal, New Yorkers. We need to give our mayor a round of applause. And now, as was the case with the Racial Justice Commission itself, New York City will be the first in the nation to have and utilize borough-based data, county-level data, capturing household costs and resources for daily needs and for savings and for debt to inform policy and programs. I want to thank all who have labored to achieve this critical and essential milestone along with the racial equity plans in the enduring fight for affordability and economic security for all. Thank you.
Grace Bonilla.
Buenos dias. To say that this has been a labor of love for me personally is an understatement. When I see all the people standing behind me and all the people that didn't make it up here, for decades we have fought to make sure that New Yorkers are treated with dignity. And whether I worked in government or whether I'm at the nonprofit sector, so many of the people standing up here had the same dream. Sometimes you shared that dream with hope, many times with anger. And today, I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank Commissioner Afamensa. I want to thank former Commissioner Sherman, because this was something that was fought for hard. I see all of my former colleagues sitting over here. The laboring of this work has been for decades. And the reality is that today we are putting a marker down. We're saying that the racial equity, release of the racial equity plan puts government squarely as a partner to those of us who have fought so hard to make sure every New Yorker can live with dignity. Deputy Mayor, I'm so glad we're leading with data, because it was sobering to hear the Deputy Mayor say that Latinos are at 73% less likely to live with dignity in this city. That is real, and that is a number that we can hold a bar to when we look at the services that we receive from government. Are we receiving them with a level that moves that number, for every community in the city? So when I think about how personal this is to me, it's because I was a girl in Jamaica, Queens, who saw that government was not working for my neighborhood. And today we are saying we are ready to do the work. So this phase, we will celebrate, but the work continues and we have to stay vigilant. Thank you.